All right, so we are continuing our class on Jeremiah. Good evening, everyone. We're going to pick up with the end of chapter 18 and the end of chapter 11. Again, I'm hoping, Rabbi Lau, if you watch this video, then I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting you one day and discussing all the different details of this, and maybe we need to republish the book at least to follow the order, because it's the only thing that I'm finding challenging as I prepare. But in any case, this is how he orders it, right? If you look at the end of chapter 18, we've already done most of chapter 11, so we've already done most of chapter 18 earlier. If you look starting at verse 18 in chapter 18. I'm going to start. I'm switching because I think I was a little bit swayed by Simcha last week. I think not that he tried to, but to try to use the newer JPS translation, or at least to try it out in my translation. So we'll see. In any case, verse 18 says, "They said," right? Who's they? I'll tell you in a minute. They said, "Come, let us devise a plot against Jeremiah, for instruction shall not fail from the priest, nor counsel from the wise, nor oracle from the prophet. Come, let us strike him with the tongue, and we shall no longer have to listen to all those words of his." Right? This is what they are saying. Right? Now, according to Rabbi Lau, this they is the other people of Anatot.
But you also mentioned when we touched on this, that only some of the people said this, not all of them.
For sure. Although in Anatot, this seems to be the the possibility is that Jeremiah, when he starts off, this is the difficulty, right? If anybody came to you today and said Ko Amar Hashem, and wasn't quoting to you the words of the Torah, you would probably say to them, "I have a nice mental institution that I can send you to." Ko Amar Hashem, thus spoke the Lord. Right? God spoke to me last night, and we'd call up the people in the white coats and say, "Hey, there's God."
I've had thoughts that entered my mind after prayer. It wasn't.
But you don't claim to. You don't walk around saying, "God spoke to me about what's going to happen to the entire Jewish people and to Jerusalem and to the temple."
No, but sometimes a thought enters your mind and you realize this is what happens if you really think hard about Torah. Or
fair, totally
right. Of the day.
That's fair, right? But you walk around Jerusalem today, you'll see many people who are telling you what they think God said. They're also asking you for spare change.
But you know what God says in the Torah.
Okay, but God also said this to Jeremiah, and it's not in the Torah. I mean, it's not the Torah. It's
post-Mosaic.
Post-Mosaic, for sure. Okay? So, perhaps at the beginning of Jeremiah's prophesying, okay. Perhaps at the beginning, then people might say, "Ugh, that crazy Jeremiah, there he goes again." But now we've got Josiah doing some pretty amazing things in the kingdom.
Yes.
Right? I mean, again, we can't discount the fact that Josiah is doing the right thing. And people understand that. And so they want to understand, they want to kind of believe that Josiah is doing the right thing, that that's going to, that everything's going to be all right with them. Jeremiah, in the meantime, walks around, and every time he sees a sin, every time he sees lies, every time he sees anything that goes against the brutal honesty which kind of characterizes who he is, he has to open his mouth. That's who he is. He can't resist. I mean, he doesn't have any pleasure from this at all. Right? He's like he's a conduit. Right? He sees this and he can't do it because, again, he knows what the potential is. Right? It's more that, right. He's concerned for the life of the people, for the life of the kingdom, for the existence of the temple, and he's afraid, and he knows that Josiah's reform isn't going to be enough, and so he wants the people to have more and to be doing better. And so when he sees them, he takes the obligation of rebuke very seriously. Unfortunately, right, at least the way we understand the halacha of rebuke, of tochacha, we generally say if the person isn't going to listen to you, then you don't say anything. You don't have to say anything. Or you shouldn't say anything.
Aren't you obliged to say something because you're not allowed to stand idly by?
Unless you think that he's not, unless you think that by saying something he might reject and then become a willful sinner as opposed to an accidental sinner.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're walking a fine line.
It's a very fine line. It's a very, very fine line.
You have an obligation to not be indifferent, not stand idly by.
Right. So again, not to go off topic, right? But the way the general approach would be, the way to do it is rather than rebuke with and risk the person feeling that you're attacking them personally, that you try to teach them in a loving manner.
Yes.
If you try to teach that, Rav Kook was famous for that. Right? Rav Avram Yitzchak Cohen Cook was famous that they there was did I tell this? I think I might have even told the story in the context of this book. But I mean, Rav Kook, there were builders building on Shabbat in Jerusalem. Right? I mean, he was there. He's the chief rabbi of Palestine, and he's there. And the people say, "There's people building on," or maybe it was even Yom Kippur. They were building. They were whatever it was. So what did he do? He went. He took a shofar and he went to blow shofar for them. And he invited them. To the shul.
Excellent.
And this is the story. I mean, this is the stories people tell.
Yeah. And that's sort of reawoke their.
Don't think that they didn't probably build the next Shabbos. They were back on the job the next Shabbos, in all likelihood. But but on Yom Kippur he was able. Again, how do you do it? That's anyway.
That's amazing. Okay. Rabbis must take a special course in being.
Unfortunately,
I mean, all the rabbis know how to do this.
No, that has to come from within. There's no course on that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in any case, right. So now Jeremiah answers, right. So Jeremiah is really kind of in this very difficult situation, and really, again, Rabbi Lau kind of is going back and forth between 11 and 19 here, right? But we know that the prophet generally is not exactly right. Most prophets are not viewed as mainstream members of society. Right? They call, right. Rabbi Lau gives us some great quotes. Right, Elisha is called a meshuga. Right, I don't need to translate.
Right.
Don't need to translate that word.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Hosea is also meshuga. They tell Amos to get at it, to run away from here to the land of Judah and go prophesy there. I mean, these are people who are going to go solo. They are not going to be accepted into the mainstream. So Yirmiyahu is going around, and they say, "What? I mean, this guy, he's crazy, right? He's nuts. He's telling us about all these lies and all these terrible things we're doing. Jeremiah, go hang out with somebody else. Go hang out with somebody who's interested. Right? Go talk to somebody who wants to hear you. Right? So, but now, right, it's getting worse. Right? In verse 8, what we saw in verse 18, right? 18:18. Right? Let us devise a plot against Jeremiah. We want to get rid of him. We're this guy's really getting on our nerves. We don't want him around." So I'm going to read here from 18 and then go back to 11. Right? Listen to me, O Lord, and take note of what my enemies say. Should good be repaid with evil, yet they have dug a pit for me. Remember how I stood before you to plead on their behalf, to turn your anger away from them. I mean, the pathos of Jeremiah is so clear. Right? This is Moses again. Right? They don't want to listen to me. I'm the one who's trying to intercede on their behalf. And now I will give their children over to famine, mow them down by the sword. Let their wives be bereaved of children and husbands. Let their men be struck down by the plague, and their young men be slain in battle by the sword. Let an outcry be heard from their houses when you bring sudden marauders against them. For they have dug a pit to trap me and laid snares for my feet. O Lord, you know all their plots to kill me. Do not pardon their iniquity. Do not blot out their guilt from your presence. Let them be made to stumble before you. Act against them in your hour of wrath. Right? This is not personal.
This is not consistent with all the feelings he's felt earlier either. This must be directed to some particularly bad people.
It's possible.
Can't be directed to the
people. It's true, but it also is a recognition that this maybe is part and parcel of the punishment that this people is going to receive.
It's not consistent with what you said even just a few minutes ago.
Right.
His heart is breaking because he doesn't want these punishments to be given. So there has to be a finer, a more narrow context here.
Unless that is the earlier Jeremiah, right? I mean, unless Jeremiah in his earlier days had a different feeling about the people. He had an optimistic feeling, he had a hopeful feeling. Now, again, it's not an accident that we know Jeremiah as a prophet of destruction and a prophet of despair.
Yeah. Look, even when Moses saw the golden calf, he still didn't want all the people to be destroyed. He still begged for their forgiveness.
Look, I think he's talking specifically about the people who are plotting against him. I don't think he's talking about everybody.
It has to be that.
But even those people, this is a change. This is a change even for that. Meaning, when I read this, I see it as even more difficult because these are exactly the people that he was trying to defend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if you turn to chapter 11. Look there, also at verse 18. The Lord informed me, and I knew that then you let me see their deeds. For I was like a docile lamb led to the slaughter. I did not realize that it was against me they fashioned their plots. Let us destroy the tree with its fruit. Let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name be remembered no more. That's a quote. That's what they're saying about him. O Lord of hosts, O just judge, who test the thoughts and the mind, let me see your retribution upon them, for I lay my case before you. It's very difficult to hear Jeremiah talking like this about people. And then it continues. Assuredly, thus said the Lord of hosts concerning the men of Anatot who seek your life, and say, you must not prophesy any more in the name of the Lord, or you will die by our hand. Right? That's what they said to him. Stop. Right? Hang up that connection you've got with God. Because this is, right, or at least what you think, because it's what you say in the name of the Lord. Assuredly, thus said the Lord of hosts, I am going to deal with them. The young men shall die by the sword, no remnant shall be left of them, for I will bring disaster on the men of Anatot the year of their doom. This is just specifically the people. This is his people. This is who he grew up with. These are his high school classmates. Right? But they specifically reject him. It's one thing to say, all right, I've heard about this Jeremiah guy. Right? But they know him, and they still reject him. And they've heard him, and they reject him again and again.
It's hard to believe that the people who knew him would physically threaten him. It's easy to believe that they wouldn't want to have anything to do with him. They don't want to go out to dinner with him anymore.
Right.
But not that they would physically threaten him.
Yeah. I mean, this is
from their perspective, and I'm not defending them. They felt that they were being autogenic, and they were saying, "Get out of my face! I don't want to hear you." That's it.
Look, this is the challenge of the prophet.
I'm not justifying their reaction, but that's the reaction.
This is the challenge with the prophet,
right?
I mean, there's no way to know what's gonna. I shouldn't say there's no way to know, right? I mean, we see it in the Torah, right? Who a true prophet is. Well, a true prophet is one who speaks A, what the Torah says, right? If he contradicts the Torah, then he's not a true prophet. And B, his prophecy comes true. Well, right? Meaning there are prophets of Baal, but there are other prophets. We're going to see them. I've told you about them. We are going to see them. There are prophets of God, right? Who say the opposite of what Jeremiah says. Again, nobody claims that those people who are publicly sinning are not sinning. That's not. The other prophets aren't seeing that. Jeremiah is seeing that. Let's look quickly to chapter 16. This is a very interesting chapter because this is another one of those examples where the prophet is asked to do something, or in this case, not to do something, in order to basically be a symbol. I mean, it's symbolic. It's totally symbolic. Okay? Chapter 16, the word of the Lord came to me.
What one?
Verse 1. Starting verse 1, the word of the Lord came to me. You are not to marry and not to have sons and daughters in this place. Don't get married here in this place meaning Judah.
Sounds like what Abraham wished for Isaac not to be married in the...
Yeah, but there he was not supposed to marry a woman from Canaan. Here, Jeremiah is not to marry, or he's not to build a family here in Judah, where he's living. Right? He's a young man. I mean, again, we saw he was 18 when it started, so let's say he's in his late 20s, early 30s by now. We suggest that it's time for him to get married. Right? Probably time before already. Right? His mother wants grandchildren.
Right.
Look what he says. Or look what God says to him.
Yeah.
For thus said the Lord concerning any sons and daughters that may be born in this place, and concerning the mothers who bear them, and concerning the fathers who beget them in this land. They shall die gruesome deaths. They shall not be lamented or buried. They shall be like dung on the surface of the ground. They shall be consumed by the sword and by famine. For their corpses shall be food for the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth. Unbelievable. I mean, this is the point. All right, and again, we're seeing Jeremiah being told and realizing that there's no hope for this generation. Right? Again, I can only repeat it, 2,000 times in the course of this class, right? The covenant is eternal. The Jewish people are eternal. Mm-hmm. But this generation here in Judah are history. Right?
Or at least a goodly percentage.
At least a goodly percentage, right? But it's interesting. But the statement here is unequivocal, mm-hmm. right? Now, again, I don't know I can't speak to whether that's true, whether it happened that way. But the prophecy is incredibly strong. Don't get married. Don't build a family, because they're all going to die. And not only are they all going to die, they're not even going to be lamented or buried. Now this is so far from anybody's mind. Right? Nobody sees this coming. So when Jeremiah says this, there's good reason to say, you're nuts. Babylon is not going to make a big difference. We've got a king who's doing right by God, right? We can make some alliances. It's going to be fine, right? Yeah, maybe we'll. I mean, again, it's a different world than today, right? But maybe it's military, right? In terms of military, whatever, right? Maybe a couple cities will be besieged, right? But we've got Jerusalem. We've got a temple, right? We're not going to be destroyed, right? We're going to go on and continue our life.
And don't forget, what they are remembering was the Assyrian siege on Jerusalem,
right.
which was spared. So they're figuring, we got God in our hip pocket. He saved us then. He's going to save us now.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. So that's what they're thinking.
And this.
How many years previous to this?
Well, that was around. Let me see. That was. The kingdom of Israel was defeated about in the year 721, before the Common Era. 586 BC is when the first temple was destroyed. So it was somewhere shortly before It was around 721. I forgot if it was before or after he attacked Israel, but somewhere around that, give or take 5 years.
So. I mean, again, this is. We'll see how this chapter continues. For thus says the Lord, do not enter a house of mourning, neither go to lament or to condole with them. I don't really know what condole means, but the other translation here is nor go to lament nor bemoan them. Right? Bispod v'al tanod lahem. For I withdraw my favor from that people, declares the Lord. My kindness and compassion. Great and small alike shall die in this land. They shall not be buried, men shall not lament them, nor gash and tonsure themselves for them. They shall not break bread for a mourner, to comfort him for a bereavement, nor offer one a cup of consolation for the loss of his father or mother, nor shall you enter a house of feasting to sit down with them to eat and drink.
People were gashing themselves for the dead, contrary to the commandments. Shouldn't be doing that in the first place.
By the way, it's very interesting, right? And that's exactly the Hebrew, right? Lo yikoda v'lo yikareach lehem. It's exactly the Hebrew from the Torah. Very interesting. It's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Right. And now again, listen to how it continues. For thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I'm going to banish from this place in your days and before your eyes the sound of mirth and gladness, the voice of bridegroom and bride. Right? Now later on, we're going to see the opposite. Right? Things are going to recover, but not now. When you announce all of these things to the people and they ask you, why has the Lord decreed upon us all this fearful evil? What is the iniquity and what the sin we have committed against the Lord our God? Say to them, because your fathers deserted me, declares the Lord, and followed other gods and served them and worshipped them. They deserted me and did not keep my instruction. And you have acted worse than your fathers, every one of you following the willfulness of his evil heart, paying no heed to me. Therefore I will hurl you out of this land to a land which neither you nor your fathers have known. And there you will serve other gods day and night, for I will show you no mercy. Assuredly a time is coming, declares the Lord, when it shall no more be said, as the Lord lives who brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. Rather, as the Lord lives who brought the Israelites, I think we've actually seen this part before, this chapter. As the Lord lives who brought the Israelites out of the north land, out of all the lands to which he had banished them. For I will bring them back to the land which I gave to their fathers. Right? I mean, it's somewhat out of place here. I'm pretty sure we've seen that before. Okay, right? But meaning that, right? That we're going to think about God not as the God who took the Jewish people out of the land of Egypt, but as the God who took the Jewish people out of the Northland, right? But they haven't gone there yet, which is why, again, Rabbi Lau would take this order out. Now we're drawing to the close of Josiah's reign, right? And that's what we're going to see next week. So, I mean, the tragedy of this scene is tremendous. Right? Jeremiah is telling them that they have no hope. And in a very material and concrete way. Don't get married. Don't raise a family. Now, they didn't have Planned Parenthood. Okay, so I was trying to come up with a more reasonable line here, right? There's no Planned Parenthood in Judah in in the 5th century BC, 6th century, right? 600 it doesn't exist. Okay, so there are going to be children born, and some of them are probably going to survive, right? But they're going to be decimated, right? And if you don't want to mourn them, then don't have them. If you think that you think that your children are going to be saved, you're wrong. If you don't want to be a parent in mourning, right? I mean, you can see you're going to be mourning your parents, and they're going to, you're going to be mourning your parents and your children at the same time. I mean, if you don't want to be mourning them, then don't have them, right?
That's very different than if you don't want to be mourning them, behave yourself.
Yeah, because
basically now he's saying
the die is cast.
Yeah.
Right.
So
we're told in Leviticus and Deuteronomy says, if you don't want these bad things to happen,
but they've already disobeyed the commandments, right. And now the punishment is going to come, right? Now the punishment is going to come, and that's what they have to accept. So, all right, we will continue again next week.